there, it's Linda from Lányos Handmade, and we have another Marathon Society video for you. Today we are going to be sewing, this is a big bag, we're going to be sewing the Lauren handbag from Mormino. I love the base of it, it's pretty cool. The straps, really big inside. There's a zipper pocket too, so you can keep things under control. And I made mine with quilting cotton on the inside and waterproof canvas on the outside. All lightweight materials too. So I got to use my domestic Janome machine. So I hope you follow along and take a look at the other videos by the other Marathon Society sewists. Everybody has their own twist and makes the bag unique to them. We've got all the links below, so take a look, see, and I guess let's get sewing. So let's start with some straps. My base is pink, but I can't find my roll of pink, so I'm going to make a strap out of the black that I've got a ton of. This is really lightweight, so I'm going to run something through it, like a strip of Decaville or twill tape or something. And then I can use some double-sided tape to hold it down while I sew around. I'm going to make these for strap anchors, even though I think I've got some strap anchors, the hardware, but I'll make these just in case. So let's start with some straps here. Okay, I marked the center just so I know not to go over the line. And I put on some double-sided tape to help me stick all this together. I want this to be out of my stitching. So that'll help keep it down. Then I'm just going to fold it over and match the edges. And after it's all clipped, I'll sew all the way around. It's not stiff enough that I can't fold it over, so I'm going to stick it into my little rectangle ring and put a Chicago screw or a rivet in it to hold the rectangle ring on, but that comes later on. So I'm going to continue to do that with all these pieces here. Do the lines, put some of this in, and then sew all the way around. And then I'll bring it back to you and show you what it looks like. So I've got my little straps done. This one will be for my strap anchor to hold on to. And it's not too thick for my machine, so that's okay. I can always use a rivet if I have trouble with my sewing machine. And I've got my straps here. They will attach to whatever hardware I finally decide to use. So there's two of them here, two of each. And the next thing to do is the zipper box. Now the zipper box, sorry about the black lining, it's on there crooked even. I gotta trim some of that off if I'm gonna be able to see my edge, because that's kind of messy. I've marked out what she wants, and I just sew around here and then cut it open and do the little V's up into the corners as close as I can without cutting the stitching, so that I can get a proper little box here. And then we turn it through and press it. But I'm going to sew it first. Okay, I've sewed my little zipper box. Ignore that marking there. From here to here. I think I called this black lining. This is actually interfacing. Sorry to confuse you. My lining is this pretty pink. So now I can cut this little zipper box open. And get as close to that stitching as you can. And I'm going to pull it through and press it. Now, if you don't want to put in zippers, you don't have to actually put in the zipper. We can finish it off without the zipper. and just make a slip pocket. But I do like zippers inside bags. They hold everything together really nicely. So I'm going to go over and press this. And hopefully it'll take out my marks too, because this is supposed to be a removable fabric marker. Anyway, I'm going to go press this, and then I'll show you how we put the zipper underneath it. Okay, I've pressed this really well. My marks did disappear, happily. Let's put on some zipper pulls. I don't know if this should be running this way or this way. I see little faces here. Let's do it this way. And now we can put this under here. I'm going to get some double-sided tape to help hold it. But what I would like is for the zipper pull to stay out of the way as I'm sewing. So I will line this up nicely. And I've got black thread in my machine, but I'm going to leave it and just hope that my edge stitching is really good. Okay, that's done like dinner, as they say. If you open the zipper, you can see there's nothing inside. So let's put something inside. Now these have to be right sides together. So I'm going to line these up and clip them together. Actually, I can use pins on this fabric. I'm going to leave those zippers hanging off the ends. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but it's not a heavy material. I can pin it, and it's not a heavy zipper. I can sew through the zipper, and I can sew through the material, so I won't have too much problem with it. The one thing I am going to do is make sure my zipper pull is in the middle, so that I'm not hitting the floppy thing hanging off the end of it. Now, she does not want you, not for sure, to sew up, to sew up the bottom, because we're going to turn the bag through the bottom. So let's leave this open. And then if you look at it now, it looks more like a pocket, doesn't it? So now I'm just going to sew around here and leave the bottom open. And after I can press it up, just to make a little bit of a hem later on, easier to do. Okay, so I'm just going to go press this right now so I can get these little ends to sit up, because that way I can have it easier. So I'll just press the ends. Okay, so there's my pocket done, and I sewed the hem into it so it'll be easier to sew it shut later. So this piece is finished. Now the one thing I did forget to do was put my strap anchors on. So I folded these over on here. I've got a mark on the other side of where it should go, so I'll line that up carefully. And I think I'm going to sew it down, and that'll catch the fold here, and also make a nice long sewing channel here that makes it very strong. It's held on by a big area, not just a little spot. So I'm going to sew this on where she says to sew it on in the pattern. I've got the mark on this side too. And then we can move on to putting our zipper on. But first I've got to get the front and the back. We are not putting the strap on yet, so don't do the strap, but I've got to get the strap anchors on so that we can make the bag. I just had to show you, this is a job for masking tape. Okay, I'll go sew these down. So this is how our strap anchors are going to look. So I think I'm going to get a bit more tape now and hold this down so it doesn't clang around or get stuck in my sewing. We've done both sides, the front and the back, so now we can move on to preparing our zipper, which goes in the top. Okay, just to show you, I have put my strap anchors on, and I folded them, taped them down so that when I put the zipper in, I don't have this flap, flap, flap that bothers me. So now I'm going to put my little zipper tabs on the end. I put a little bit of tape on this one because it drives me bonkers when these things are slipping around too much. So all I'm going to do is fold this over and sandwich that in there, and then I'll put some clips on. And then I can edge stitch it on. And then I can do the same on the other side. Fold this over, make sure it's nice and even both ways. And then I sandwich this on here, and I edge stitch around, and then our zipper will be ready. Before I continue, I'm just going to check the measurement to make sure I have the right length here of zipper with the tabs and everything. Okay, I've got my zipper tab on, and I checked the length of it, and it's the correct length. This is going to be the back of my bag, so let's take this as the back of my bag too. And if I want this to be the back of my bag, I want to check, make sure my zipper pull opens the same. So I've got this one inside that opens this way, and this one that opens this way. So I want to have this end here. So no matter what I do, make sure this end goes here. Okay, so now that we've decided we want to have our zipper pulls on the same side here, we know this is how we want it to work. Let's put the right sides of these things together. Remember, we want our pull here. So let's make sure it's there. Yep, same side. Now we want right sides of this together, and we want our zipper teeth to be right sides too. Because when we put it on here and sew it down, it's going to end up folding up this way. And then that way we have the right sides. Now with this sandwiching here, you can do it all at once, or else you can do it one side at a time. But just check it, because again, we want to make sure right side, and these come like this. Now I'm just going to do it one at a time for now. So the first one we are going to do is baste. And the second time we pass through, we're going to sew it down with the lining and everything. I wonder if that little floppy thing will get in the way. Got some clips upside down. And there will be a space on both ends, which is good, because that's going to show where the seam allowance is, and you'll have space to work with. And then, of course, if you want to check again, after it's sewed in, it'll look good. So I'm just going to baste across here, and then we can stick the other layer on top. Okay, this side is basted on. Right sides, right sides. Let's do the sandwiching now. I hope I've got a center marked on here. Yep. And do you want to check it again just in case? This is what the inside's going to look like. This is what the outside's going to look like. Okay, so now I can sew with a proper seam allowance across here. There, I've got my zipper in on this side. And I pressed it really well. Everything's looking pretty fine. Now sometimes when I'm top stitching, I go through the outside and the inside, but I only do from here to here. And then that way I can have the seam allowance open up so I can sew it. Because if you sew this down with top stitching, you will never get your seam allowance to open properly to sew the other layers together when we finish our bag. So sometimes I sew from here to here, and that works out okay. With this one, with the foam inside, it's going to be a little bit heavy for me for my machine. So I am going to top stitch just from here. I don't know if you can see that. Just from this tab to this tab, but just this outside layer, just to try and hold things down. So I'm not going to go all the way to the edge again because I want to make sure that this seam allowance on the side is really floppy so that I can put it all together. So I'm just going to top stitch my outer layer from here to here. There, now that that is on, we can put on this other outer layer. And of course our outer layers are right side together. And we'll sew it on the other side of the zipper. I'm going to flip mine over because I know I've got a center mark on here. So I'm going to put that right there. And we can baste that across here. Or else if you want to do it really quick, you could put this on here too and clip it down and sew it across there. But I'm going to do it one step at a time. Sew it right across. Okay, so we sewed the zipper on here. If you want to have a look, there it is. So now we can sew our lining on and make a little sandwich. Line up your centers. You want to have a peek? There's our 2 lining pieces. There's our 2 exterior pieces. So I'm going to go sew this. And I'll be back. Okay, this is done. Now I just have to top stitch this. I'm going to make sure I don't sew my lining in, and I'm just going to sew from here to here for top stitching, but no lining, just on the main layer. So all my top stitching is done. I only went from here to here because I was worried about the foam, and I really want to keep these seam allowances free of everything so I can properly sew them together. On the inside, I put in my labels, so don't forget that. So now we can sew the base onto the bottom. I had a pink base, just like I had pink straps, but I don't know where they've gone. So I've got this black base here. And this just gets sewn onto our exterior layer, nicely centered. I don't know if you can see because it's such a big bag, it won't show up in here anymore. And we'll put it on here. And we'll sew it down, and after we sew it down, then we flip it over and we top stitch along the black. So for now, let's just sew it on there, and then we'll come back and top stitch. And now that it's sewed on, I can top stitch it. So now we've got our top stitching done on this side. Now we have to sew this side to the other bottom here, which is pretty easy to do this. But the top stitching part of it's going to be kind of fun. So for now, let's just sew this on, and we'll worry about the top stitching later. So there's the bottom of our bag, and we've sewed the other side on. So now we have to top stitch it. And if we're going to top stitch it, sometimes when I'm, oops, sorry, I hit the camera. Sometimes I'm able to top stitch like half through the open hole and the other half, and just tie off the ends in the middle. With this one, it's so long you can't reach that way. So we are going to open up our bag this way, and remember we're top stitching on the black. So I'm going to put this under my machine and sew along here on the black. And you'll have to adjust as you're going along to make sure that all your layers are facing the right way and you don't have anything extra you're dragging in there. So give it a shot, but this is the best way to access it, is to sew along here. There, that turned out pretty good. Top stitch both sides. Now let's put these sides together. lining goes together. So I pinned my lining together and my exterior together. Let's not worry about the bottoms right now. We're just going to do this side seam, which is really big and hard to see. So we'll do the side seam on both sides. I made sure I lined up this seam and I put a pin right there so that the seam would look good after we're done. And I'm just going to sew along the sides here, both sides. Now the side seams are sewn. This one I made just a little bit wider because it's the lining and I want it to be tight. So this will make the lining tight. And this is the proper seam allowance. And now we're going to leave this bottom and we're going to do something with this bottom. And what we're going to do is, I really should measure out the center mark here. I want to line the center of this up with my seam here. And I'm going to clip it all down. Okay, so I found the center, butterflied the seam and matched up with the center. And I'm just going to sew across with my seam allowance on both sides. So both sides are sewn. Now we can turn it through our lining hole here. Make sure you poke out your corners. Oh, big thread. And I'll shove this in just so you can look at it. Poke these out. Now, I always say the best are the ones that have a hole in them, because then you can turn it very nicely. And your tabs look really good. So this is the outside done. We just have to finish off the inside. So now we've got this big mess of an inside to fix up. Now remember the pocket inside that has the hole in it? We are going to stick our hand in there and pull our lining through the hole. Now that really looks like a mess. We'll finish this off the same way. We're going to sew this together. So let's sew the base of this together first. This is our lining base. And we'll sew this together first, and then after we'll deal with the side of our base. Now you can see our base is sewn. Now we've got these holes in the side to take care of. And you remember before when we were doing the outside, we had this funny notched shape taken out of it. Well, that has to go together like this, with this matching up with the seam, just like with the exterior. I always have a habit of butterflying these seams, but nobody's going to see the ones on the inside, so I don't know why I really do it. So let's just pull this out. And it's going to be sewn the same way as the outside. This has a triangle shape to it too, but that's just seam allowance hanging over. So that's where we're going to sew across. And on the other side, the same thing. You have that same square piece taken out. And now we have to put it together, the side seams and the base. Make sure when you're sewing this that you don't have anything rumpled up underneath here, because you only want to sew those two layers together. You don't want to sew any wrinkles in anything. And then I'm going to sew across here and there, this side and that side, and that'll fix that. So now that those two sides are sewn up, we can push it inside. back inside the zipper pocket. And we can poke those corners out too. And there we have the inside finished. Except this pocket. So let's pull out the pocket and we'll sew that up. I'm glad I pressed it before because now I've got a little bit of the line that I can see. So I'm just going to pin that. And we'll sew this closed. So I've sewed the pocket up and I can shove the pocket in, poke out the corners, do up my zipper. I rumpled it up again, so poke out some more corners. And our bag is finished now. We just need some straps put on. So now we go on to the last step and put our straps on. I'm going to see if there's a good side and a bad side here. This side looks nicer. So let's put the strap on. I'm going to use some rivets or Chicago screws or something. Let's just clip this so it stays. And on this side too. Make sure you get your straps sitting nicely, not twisted. That looks good. It's going to be nice. And I've got some little, well, I've got some turtles, but the roses fit better for these flowers. So I'm going to put on these little rose Chicago screws. And punch a hole, get some glue, and put them on. It'll put a little bit of bling on there. And then after we do the other side too. Okay, I'll go punch those holes and glue those in, and then we're done. So how'd that go? How did yours turn out? We really would like to see, so please share on social media. I want to say thank you for watching, and I want to say thank you to Mormino for the pattern, and thank you to the Marathon Society for letting me be a part of this again.